In question 1, we're given a graph detailing different stages of the demand falling in the constant cost industry. So stage 1, in the long run before demand falls, this is before anything happens. So of course it's going to be the blue arrow pointing to the pot where demand 1, short run supply, and long run supply intersects. Stage 2, in the short run after demand falls. So demand has just fallen, and the long run has not set in yet. In the short run, but we're talking in the short run, so of course it's going to move to the left because demand curve has to move to the left to show that the demand is falling. So that will be the point where demand 2 and short run supply intersect, which is where the yellow arrow is pointing. And then number 3, in the long run after demand falls. After demand falls, in the long run, it will go back to normal. The demand will rise again, but we will be looking for the point where demand 2 and the long run supply intersect, which is where the red arrow points to. Part A. When will the marginal cost of production be lowest? At stage 1, stage 2, or stage 3? Stage 2. At this point, the demand has fallen. This is where the demand is lowest, so we can assume that the marginal cost of the production will also be low. Part B. When firms cut prices, they often do so in dramatic ways, during which stage will the local pizza stops begin making buy one get one free offers, or free car wash with fill up. This will be stage 2. At this point, the demand has fallen. Less people will have come to consume their products. So this is when they start getting desperate. Offering things with a discount or an offer. So it will be stage 2. Part C. When is P greater than AC, or less than AC, or equal to AC? Well, P is going to be equal to AC at stages 1 and 3, since they'll be making a zero profit. And P would be less than AC at stage 2. P doesn't get greater than the average cost in this case, as the demand has decreased rather than increased, so our profits have actually gone down, which is what part D talks about. Restating the previous question, when are profits positive, negative, or zero? Since the demand has gone down, the profits would be negative in stage 2, while the profits are zero in stage 1 and stage 3. They're never positive. Roughly speaking, will the long run response mostly involve firms leaving the industry, or will it mostly involve individual firms shrinking? What we learned before is that when P is less than AC, this is when firms will start leaving the industry, and the demand will start increasing in other firms, which will raise it back to its former glory. So since the profits decrease in the short run, the long run response is involve firms leaving the industry. In question 2, we mentioned that the corporate manufacturing looked like a decreasing cost industry, and we are asked to suppose that carpeting has become even less popular than it is today. What would this fall in demand probably due to the price of carpet in the long run? Well, if we look at the decreasing cost industry, we notice that if we move to the left, the price of the carpet will rise to accumulate for the less demand. So the price of the carpet will probably increase.
Question 3, part A, it's asking us to think about what is going to happen when a new innovation arises that allows a previously $1,000 TV to be made for $600. In the long run, the price is going to fall to $600 because competitors are always going to push prices lower in order to attract customers. For part B, it's that same type of problem with just different specifics. In a competitive market, the price of a flash drive that can be sold cheaper will go down, in this case to $4. Because we're assuming that these two examples are done in a constant cost market, we know that the cost of producing the goods being sold is not affected much when production is scaled to meet a huge rise in demand, and we also know that producers can't price the product higher as the demand is highly elastic. That means that in the long run, the price isn't going to increase with demand as long as those initial conditions remain. In a continuation of that thought, part D asks if demand has any impact on constant cost market prices in the long run, and the answer is, well, no. The demand is highly elastic, and producers have little to no control over the prices of their goods. Now, how does all of this impact the consumers of the goods? They're going to be the ones receiving 100% of the benefits of cost cutting because they're not actually doing anything besides buying the product, and yet the prices are still going down.
In question 4, we're examining a situation similar to the carpet capital in Dalton, Georgia, where Cambodian immigrants come in and basically take over the donut industry temporarily in California. As other Cambodian refugees came from Los Angeles to California, which demographic was Noi more likely to hire from? Well, he was more likely to hire from the refugees because being able to converse with his employees in his native language makes business more efficient, and that's just makes it more economically viable for him to hire them than someone who doesn't speak Khmer. This makes it more likely that other Cambodian refugees will open donut shops because the donut industry has expanded for Khmer speakers. So as they migrate rapidly into the area to flee the tyrannical rule, they will find easier job prospects in the donut industry. This does encourage a virtuous cycle of Cambodian-owned donut shops because an industry cluster forms as suppliers move in rapidly. So that makes costs decrease temporarily. So what sort of cost industry is this? This is a decreasing cost industry because the industry produces less as price increases. Okay, part E. The cycle does not continue forever because no decreasing cost industry can be economically viable in the long term. In the end, it either flattens out or slopes upward depending on the nature of the good that they're selling. So Cambodians will dominate the donut industry for a while, but eventually the cluster spreads out and the market will be driven by the desire to maximize profit. New entrepreneurs come in and it basically evens out. Okay. Question 5. You run a small firm and you're given 2 different sets of advice from 2 different consultants. First consultant says you're losing money on every unit you produce and you should cut back production. Second consultant says that if your firm sells another unit, the price will more than cover your increase in costs, so you should increase production. They're both right, but both of their advice are not right. So we're looking at a special situation where the price or marginal revenue curve is actually below the minimum of the average cost curve, so it never intersects. Therefore, there's no way to not lose money when producing any quantity. The best course of action is the second consultant, because first of all, your industry's got to get out of the industry. Your firm has to get out of the industry as soon as possible. So the increase in production is the lesser of 2 evils because it decreases your losses. In other words, you lose more by not producing than you would by producing the optimal amount in the short run until you have a window to exit. So you should follow the second consultant's advice and increase production.
For question 6, we're given the following information on the 3 winemakers, Paulette, Camille, and Hortons. We know their fixed costs, variable costs, recession revenues, as well as the price they're receiving. And for part A, we want to know their profits. Before we jump into the profit calculation, we first calculated the quantity based on the price and their revenues. We also calculated other variables such as total cost, their average cost, as well as average variable cost. By using the formula that I've already used a couple of times before, we said the profit is equal to total revenue minus total cost. And so for Paulette, it's minus $10,000. For Camille, it's minus $70,000. And for Hortons, it's minus $250,000. Since for all of them, the revenues are not enough to cover the total cost, which is variable cost plus fixed cost, we see that their profit is negative for all of them, and so none of them earn an actual profit. For part C, we want to know who can stay in business in the short run and who should really shut down. We learned from the textbook that if P, which is price, is smaller than the average variable cost, the business should shut down and exit ASAP. If the average variable cost is the minimum of average variable cost is smaller than price, which is smaller than the average cost, we should produce quantities such that price is equal to marginal cost and then exit ASAP. But if the price is equal to or larger than average cost, then the business should stay in the industry and produce the amount that would enable them to earn the most profit, which is price equal to marginal cost. Therefore, Paulette and Camille should stay in business and Hortons should shut down. Since we see that for Paulette, the price is larger than average variable cost. For Camille, the minimum of average variable cost is smaller than price, which is smaller than the average cost. So she should produce such that M is equal to MC, but P is equal to MC, but exit ASAP. And for Hortons, the price is already so low that it's smaller than the minimum of average variable cost, and so she should shut down and exit ASAP. For D, we said that even if profit is negative, as we see in this case, if revenues are greater than variable costs, then it is best to stay open in the short run. For E, we want to see which of these wineries has a price that's larger than average cost. Since the price is universal is €5, and we see their average cost is 5.42, 10, and 11.25, we see that none of them has a price which is bigger than average cost.